Welcome to the True Guy Globe Brief Updates. Subscribe and press the bell icon for updates. It begins with a number, a simple figure, yet one that carries profound implications. Numbers, after all, are more than just symbols on a page. They are the keys to understanding patterns, unlocking mysteries, and revealing truths that might otherwise remain hidden. Among the countless numbers in the world of science, one stands out, quietly demanding our attention. A recent comprehensive study has brought to light a remarkable fact. Ashkenazi Jews possess the highest average IQ of any ethnic group, with scores consistently ranging from 112 to 115. This is not just a slight edge, it's a significant leap above the global mean, which hovers around 100. This phenomenon isn't limited to a handful of celebrated geniuses or outliers. Instead, it's a consistent, measurable pattern observed across an entire population. The real question that emerges is, why does this pattern exist? What factors could possibly explain such a striking difference? To answer this, we must look beyond the present and journey back through time. What unique forces, pressures, and circumstances shaped this extraordinary outcome? The answer is woven into a tapestry of 1,000 years of history, of adaptation, resilience, and survival against the odds. It's a story shaped by migration, persecution, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. Linking intelligence to ethnicity is a subject fraught with controversy and debate, yet, to ignore the data is to overlook a remarkable narrative of human adaptation and ingenuity. These numbers are not judgments or verdicts, they are clues, scattered across the pages of history and science, waiting to be pieced together. They invite us to dig deeper, to investigate how culture, history, and biology have intertwined over centuries to produce such an outcome. Let's approach this as a detective would, methodically, with curiosity and care. The evidence is compelling, but the explanation is layered and complex, requiring us to consider every angle. Our task is to trace the chain of events, the decisions and circumstances that led to this extraordinary result. Each link in the chain tells a part of the story. This isn't a tale of superiority or hierarchy, but of specificity, a unique response to unique challenges, forged in the crucible of adversity and necessity. It's the untold story of how a people, faced with repeated hardship and exclusion, developed not just the will to survive, but the tools to adapt, innovate, and ultimately thrive in a world that often stood against them. When we see the remarkable intellectual achievements of Jewish individuals throughout history, it's tempting to attribute their success solely to a deep-rooted culture of learning and scholarship. For centuries, Jewish communities have placed immense value on education, debate, and the study of sacred texts, fostering an environment where knowledge is cherished and intellectual curiosity is encouraged from a young age. But if tradition and religious devotion alone were responsible for this pattern, we would expect to see similar levels of achievement and cognitive ability across all Jewish groups, regardless of where they lived or their specific customs. Yet, the data tells a different story. Only Ashkenazi Jews, descendants of those who settled in medieval Europe, particularly along the Rhine Valley, consistently display this elevated average IQ and a notable presence in fields like science, mathematics, and philosophy. The difference, then, isn't simply a matter of religious practice or shared beliefs. Instead, it's rooted in ethnic lineage and the unique historical journey of the Ashkenazi people. The Ashkenazi experience was shaped by a set of unique social, economic, and political pressures in medieval Europe, pressures that were not experienced by other Jewish populations, such as Sephardic or Mizrahi Jews, to the same extent. This realization shifts our question. Instead of asking, why are Jews so smart, we must ask a more precise question. Why are Ashkenazi Jews in particular so smart? What set them apart from their fellow Jews? The answer, it turns out, lies in the field of population genetics and in the specific challenges and selective pressures faced by this group over centuries. Their story is one of adaptation and survival. To truly understand this phenomenon, we must look beyond faith and tradition and instead examine ancestry, environment, and the powerful historical forces that shape just one branch of the Jewish diaspora. So what made the Ashkenazi experience so different from that of other Jewish groups? And how did these differences shape not only their culture, but also their minds and intellectual legacy? To understand the Ashkenazi anomaly, we must look beyond the surface and delve into the deep currents of history that shaped this remarkable community. We must trace their origins, following the threads of ancestry that stretch back through centuries and across continents. Descended from a small group that migrated from the Middle East to Northern Europe, the Ashkenazi Jews carried with them ancient traditions and memories. For centuries they remained isolated, forming tight-knit communities that preserved their identity, even as the world around them changed. Modern genetic studies reveal a striking fact. Today's Ashkenazi Jews descend from just a few hundred founders. This is a textbook example of the founder effect, where a small population gives rise to a much larger one, amplifying certain traits and characteristics over generations. Unlike their diverse ancestors, Ashkenazim in Christian Europe faced severe restrictions that set them apart from their neighbors and limited their opportunities. Barred from land ownership and most trades, they were systematically excluded from the economic mainstream. Instead, they were funneled into a narrow economic niche, often confined to roles such as money lending, trade, and scholarship, professions that were both permitted and, at times, necessary for survival. This exclusion wasn't accidental, it was the result of deliberate policy, driven by a mix of religious prejudice and economic competition. Laws and decrees reinforced these boundaries, shaping the destiny of generations. Forced out of manual and physical jobs, Ashkenazi Jews had to adapt quickly, finding new ways to survive and thrive in a world that often seemed hostile. This bottleneck created a unique selective environment, one that favored skills and talents different from those valued by the surrounding society. Intellectual agility, adaptability, and resourcefulness became essential for survival. Over generations, these pressures shaped the community's abilities, fostering a culture that prized learning, debate, and resilience. The Ashkenazi story is one of adaptation to relentless adversity, a testament to the human spirit's capacity to endure and innovate in the face of hardship. Their survival depended on developing a new set of skills, from literacy and numeracy to negotiation and critical thinking, all of which became central to their way of life. This crucible of history forged a distinct intellectual profile, one that continues to shape the Ashkenazi community and its contributions to the world today. Before exclusion hardened, Ashkenazi Jews thrived as long-distance merchants. Their network spanned continents, bridging Christian, Byzantine, and Islamic worlds. Success in trade demanded literacy, numeracy, and sharp judgment, rare skills in medieval Europe. The most successful merchants prospered and passed on their cognitive advantages. This era began a process of selecting for abstract reasoning and strategic thinking. But as Christian merchant classes rose, resentment grew. Laws gradually pushed Jews out of trade, closing doors that had briefly opened. The Golden Age ended, and new restrictions forced them into even narrower roles. The community faced a new challenge: survival in a world with shrinking opportunities. The stage was set for the next phase of adaptation. As trade opportunities vanished, one path remained: finance. Christians were forbidden from lending money at interest, but the economy needed capital. Jews, as outsiders, were pushed into money lending, a dangerous, despised, but necessary profession. This was not a choice, but a confinement. Money lending required sharp minds, not physical strength or guild membership. Over centuries, Ashkenazi Jews became concentrated in this cognitively demanding field. Success depended on mathematical skill, risk assessment, and negotiation. Those who excelled thrived and raised larger families, passing on their abilities. The community became a multi-generational experiment in selecting for financial acumen. This was about survival, not preference. The result, a population shaped by the demands of finance, not farming or craft. The moneylender's mind became the Ashkenazi mind. Medieval peasants survived by strength and endurance. Intelligence was secondary. Blacksmiths and masons relied on manual skills and spatial reasoning. In contrast, Ashkenazi moneylenders needed numeracy, verbal skill, and strategic thinking. Physical strength was irrelevant. Mental acuity was everything. Small errors could mean ruin. Success required precision and foresight. In this environment, those with better cognitive abilities prospered and had more children. Over generations, these traits became more common in the population. It was natural selection for a new kind of fitness, cognitive, not physical. The community wasn't breeding for intelligence, just trying to survive, but the relentless pressure left a mark. A millennium later, the Ashkenazi population shows a distinct cognitive profile. The demands of survival shape their minds as surely as climate shapes bodies. Ashkenazi intelligence isn't uniform. It's a profile of strengths and weaknesses. They excel in verbal and mathematical reasoning, often reaching the highest percentiles. These are the skills needed for merchants, financiers, and negotiators. But studies show a consistent weakness: visuospatial ability. Skills like mental rotation or mechanical reasoning are, on average, lower than in other European groups. This pattern matches their historical occupations, which didn't require spatial skills. The cognitive signature is evidence of adaptation to a specific environment. If culture alone explained it, abilities would be more evenly distributed. Instead, the Ashkenazi mind is specialized. Peaks in some areas, valleys in others. The result is a mind shaped by 1,000 years of unique pressures. Imagine the difference between an engineer and a banker. The engineer needs spatial reasoning and mathematical skill to build and design. The banker thrives on abstract thinking, numbers, and negotiation. The Ashkenazi cognitive profile, strong in math and verbal skills, weaker in spatial ability, fits the banker, not the engineer. This is no accident. It's the result of centuries in professions demanding these skills. History didn't create a universally intelligent mind, but a specialized one. That's why Ashkenazi Jews are overrepresented in fields like finance, law, and academia. Environmental specialization is common in nature, and humans are no exception. Different histories create different minds, each adapted to its own challenges. The Ashkenazi story is a clear example of how environment shapes intellect. The Ashkenazi story is a testament to the power of history. The past isn't just a story, it's written into our biology. Laws, professions, and dangers shape not just culture, but cognition. We are all products of our ancestors' struggles and adaptations. The Ashkenazi case shows selection can shape minds as well as bodies. But this isn't destiny. The world changes, and so do the skills that matter. New environments create new pressures and new adaptations. Human diversity is a legacy of resilience and adaptation. The Ashkenazi experience is a lesson in how adversity can forge unique strengths. It's the echo of 1,000 years of survival written in the mind.